And listen to this young fellow that's coming up here. He doesn't look young anymore. He's, doesn't have any hair or anything like that. But he didn't have any when he was my student. 15 years ago, Brad Keywell, I was teaching a course at in entrepreneurship business planning. He came to me, he was an 18-year-old punk. Just an 18-year-old kid. And he said, I want to take your course. I said, you can't take my course. It's an MBA course. It's a grad course. You can't get in my course. And he kept bugging the hell out of me, and he said, I'm going to take your course, and I'm going to be your best student. I'll tell you something, he was. Most incredible kid. This kid paid his way through the University of Michigan, had something 6, 8 businesses there. His last business while he was at the University of Michigan, he did $1.5 million with it while he was a senior. He went off, started a business. At age 27, listen to this. At age 27, he sold that business for $241 million. Any of you kids out there think you can't do it, tune in on this guy. And with that thought planted in your mind, all I want you to be thinking about, what I'll say to you is, okay, you're 18, you're 20, you're 22, so what the hell have you done? You better get going to catch up to him. And he's hoping you'll catch him. Because that's what makes this beauty of entrepreneurship just glow, is one guy sets a standard and moves along, the next one comes and passes him by. So here's a target for you to pass by before you're 27, okay? I'll give you Brad Keywell, one hell of a kid.
I don't mean to have this mutual love society going on, but I do want to take this opportunity to say to everybody here, I went through, obviously, 12, 13 years of elementary and high school, and 4 years of undergrad, and then 3 years of law school. And I probably had 300, 400 teachers in that time. And I think if any of us are lucky, one or 2 teachers really make a lasting impact. And I am exceptionally fortunate to tell you that there was one that I had, and his name is Fred Kiesner, and it's been a lasting effect that he's had on my life. And I'm not sure how many of you really have gotten to know this special man well, but all I can say, I invite you, before you leave this weekend, to introduce yourself to Grandpa Fred, as he likes to be called, and just try to soak in a little of the inspirational magic, because he is really a special man. So if you just join me a quick acknowledgement. Anyway, so yes, 15 years ago I was sitting where you're sitting, in San Francisco. One of the predecessor organizations to this organization was called ACE, the Association of Collegiate Entrepreneurs. So, in a small way I've sort of earned the right to say that I a little bit sort of see where you are right now, and hope a little bit to sort of understand, why you're here, and what you hope to get out of this weekend, and where you're going. So let's play a little show of hands Q&A here. How many of you find happiness creating and growing businesses? Raise your hand if you do. How many of you would be happy doing that for a long, long, long time? How many of you would be happy spending your days in an office, the same office every day, going to long meetings, dealing with office politics, and having to sort of navigate bureaucracy? Anybody? A couple. Interesting. And how many of you are happy, really happy, when you're free to create? I'm with you. I'm with you. And for those of you who never paid attention in philosophy class, myself included, I want to sort of play a little bit of philosophical connect the dots with you before I a little bit about my own story. So there's 3 or 4 sort of different quotes I want to sort of bring up and then tie them together. One is by this guy named Aristotle, who I'm sure all of us have heard of, who I think is a pretty interesting philosopher. Again, I never really got what he was all about when I was in school. But his core was about happiness, okay? He basically said that we are all here, and our only goal and our real goal in life is to be happy, period. And that's a good goal, and I sort of buy that. Then a guy named Thomas Paine, who I came across 10 years ago. This was sort of one of the preeminent writers during the Revolution, when America became independent. And here's what he said. He said, it is necessary to find happiness It's necessary to the happiness of man that he be mentally faithful to himself. And being unfaithful, he defines, is not following what you believe in. And I propose to each of you that by being here physically on a Saturday morning after being out partying last night, you believe in entrepreneurship, and I assume you believe in yourself. I take you from Aristotle to this revolutionary writer to a poet named Robert Frost, who I'm sure some of us have heard of, who said, "Freedom lies in being bold." And then the last quote is Mahatma Gandhi, who was an Indian revolutionary, who said, "Freedom is not worth having if it does not include the freedom of making mistakes." So what does that all mean to me? Well, let me give you my version to connect the dots. I basically am saying that you are here, we are all here to be happy. And that you are blessed to be in the United States because you're given a platform here to really make yourself happy, to create your own happiness. And if being an entrepreneur is really who you are, if you think you are, and I tell you, by being here, you are, okay, and you're on that path, you've got a responsibility to figure out, do you have that burning passion inside of you to find happiness, and are you willing to do what it takes to find it? You know, this freedom of making choices, of being an entrepreneur, gives us not only the power to create our own world, but to define the world, the whole world. And so I want to tell you a bit about myself and offer to each of you that you guys have the power to define what your world's going to be like, yourself, your family, your community, and way beyond that. So like I said, 15 years ago I was here, I was at the University of Michigan, and I had a number of businesses I started in college. Not sure exactly why, all I knew is it made me really happy. And I felt a real sense of enjoyment going out and creating things that I thought might work and testing that thesis. I then went to law school at the University of Michigan, and out of 500 some odd graduates in Michigan in 1994, there were 2 who didn't become lawyers or go into law, my business partner and myself. Now, I propose to each of you that going to law school is great, especially being an entrepreneur. It'll give you a fantastic foundation for the way the world works and sort of why things are the way they are. But going to law school and not practicing law is even more powerful because it lets you sort of see all kinds of sides of a coin and then make a decision that says, you know, I'm going to take all the assets that I have, the intellectual assets, and put them to what I would consider a very compelling use. So, my story sort of began right out of law school. I was doing due diligence, or during law school I sort of said, you know, I know that I don't want to be a lawyer. And I had the fortune through actually Prepper Fred's, Professor Kiesler's class at Michigan, to meet a man named Sam Zell, who some of you may have heard of. He's a prolific entrepreneur here in Chicago. And so I had an opportunity, and I'd spent time with Sam throughout my undergraduate and law school careers, opportunity to go work for Sam and get a job. And in my gut, I just knew that didn't make sense for me for a number of reasons, but one of which is what I want to sort of leave you with, if anything else. It's really tough to become an entrepreneur, a creator, when you're working for one. You're much better paving your own path and learning yourself and letting it go. So with that philosophy, I went out and looked for companies while I was in school, and we actually found, of all companies, an apparel company, a sportswear company, based in Wisconsin. And so there I was, taking the bar exam at the University of Michigan and doing due diligence on a company at the same time. And we ended up raising money, and we bought a company literally right out of law school. So within a month of graduating law school, I was living in a hotel in Madison, Wisconsin, running a company, being not only the youngest of 400 employees, but also the owner. And the challenges that brought with it, I can only offer to you, were exceptional, but also incredibly valuable. And so over the next 3-4 years, my partner and I grew a company from $2 million to about $20 million in sales. And it was pretty exciting. And the opportunity to sort of take a company from a domestic manufacturer of clothing to a global sourcing company, deal with licensing from everyone from the professional sports leagues to Disney and Warner Brothers. Great experience. But in my gut, what I said to myself around 1998 was, this is not my end-all be-all. There's something more that I think I have within me beyond making clothing. And so I took a break, which at the time meant taking 3 or 4 hours off at night, not working. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that being defined as a break. And I started to write a business plan. The business plan said, you know, I'm going to take what I've learned so far, my limited, you know, perspective, and I'm going to sort of test it and see what I know, what I really know, what I've really learned, and how it affects a larger pattern. And so I wrote a business plan that basically said, you know what, there's a business out there that I'm in, but I'm not really sure I know that I'm in, or haven't realized that I'm in, and it's called taking something that's blank, taking a blank thing and putting a logo on it. The fact that I'm taking a shirt and putting an NFL logo on it is sort of to the business I'm in, but there's a larger thing that I think I might know here, which is there's a supply chain in blank stuff to decorated stuff that's pretty interesting. And so I wrote a business plan that really created, or called for creating technology that automated the way all that worked, that increased the visibility to the end consumer of a decorated product. Now, decorated products, again, to me, it's beyond a shirt with a logo. It might be when you buy a new car, open the glove compartment, there is a portfolio of stuff in that glove compartment, and it's got Ford or GM or Volvo written on it. That's decorated, and somebody's got to buy it, order it, and make it. So the technology was really the concept. We wrote a business plan in probably what was the best year to write a business plan in the last 100 years, and 1998, 1999. So we wrote a business plan. We quickly raised a whole bunch of money. What we did with that money was create quickly. We built a company that went from sort of startup to about 200 people in less than a year, because we were passionately after what we saw as a vision, which is let's be first and let's be best in creating something that's compelling to an industry. And as we were doing it, the biggest company in the whole world that did what we do, a public company on the New York Stock Exchange, decided that they had to own us. And so they approached us late in '99, and they bought us in early 2000 when I became president of this public company. So at age 30, 29, I guess, I was the vice president of a company on the New York Stock Exchange. So again, within 10 years of being where you are, I was running a public company, which brought with it an enormous number of challenges and learnings and lessons, and as Karen talked about, spirituality and looking within to understand that, you know what, there's something within me that is creative, that is exceptionally passionate, and that can really embrace where I am. Well, that's the good news. The bad news is that I joined a company that had issues before I got there. And so I want to talk a little bit, when I get towards the end of this, about sort of the highs and lows of entrepreneurship. That there are incredible highs and there are incredible lows. And I would remind each of you that it's the highs and the lows together that matter. Okay? The highs alone, there's an end to that. So 2 years after I took over this company, I left, and shortly thereafter, the company declared bankruptcy. And this happens in all types of companies for all types of reasons. And in my case, I was the president, and I reported to a board of directors, so I didn't have ultimate control. But something came out of this, which sort of will forever be within me, and that is there's an inner resolution to a true entrepreneur. There's an inner belief in the process of entrepreneurship, the process of creating something and having the power that each of you have to create a business, to create your vision. You have that power, and the power doesn't go away when you fail. I think it gets stronger. I think the belief in yourself gets stronger every time you're challenged and every time that you find yourself having to figure out how to deal with something. So that was 3-4 years ago. In the last 3-4 years, I've sort of back on the trail. I now invest in a number of companies, and I've created 2 companies. I have 3 companies that I'm sort of overseeing right now in a more of an advisory or oversight capacity. Is either chairman of the board or chief executive. 2 of them are fundamentally based on India-based outsourcing, which I knew nothing about 3-4 years ago. And it was nothing but good fortune that led me to get an introduction to somebody who asked me to join his board, and he was an India-based company. And for me, it's been fascinating. For me, I really believe in the opportunity of optimal labor and maximizing the value add at every stage. And I think that my personal perspective, as a quick aside on India outsourcing as it relates to U.S. businesses, it's empowering for U.S. business. It calls on all of us to be entrepreneurs, to find higher value, more innovative ways to use our intelligence and use our minds and use our bodies. And it allows us a platform to deliver some of the things that otherwise would be very manual and were high cost, high input parts of a service or product. It allows us to make those a lower cost part of that product and push ourselves to be more innovative. But at the same time of growing these businesses, I guess one of my points about India is each of you are going to come across people or opportunities or situations that might not inherently seem like you get it. But deep down inside, you might say to yourself, I think I can create off that concept. I think there's something there that's interesting to me. And I propose to you that whether you're 35 like I am right now, or 25, or 18, or 55, it's never too late to learn something new. And if you succeeded, or if you failed, you're going to succeed and fail again. And part of the fun of what we're all doing here, part of my enjoyment of being an entrepreneur, is that there's going to be something else, and it's going to be challenging, and I'm going to learn it and embrace it. And you know, it's just a wonderful opportunity that we can do that here. It goes back to what I talked about, sort of freedom and happiness, as two things to really think about as you think about business. So what are the big lessons that I would leave to you? The big lessons that I think are critical in my short period of running businesses that I now use on a day-to-day basis. Well, one is, number one, as an entrepreneur, don't expect to have a normal life. Okay, don't expect to go to a cocktail party and quickly explain what you do in a really succinct way. It's going to be a long explanation. And so be it. Embrace the fact that what you do is not simply, I work for so-and-so. What you do probably is, I have an idea, and it's a long idea, and you know what, I'm going to try to boil it down like we did in the elevator pitch competition. But bottom line is, it is interesting, and it takes a little bit of time to explain. Number two is, you're going to experience huge successes and huge failures. Be present in all of them, and keep going through all of it. Number three, I would say, is remember that it's the day-to-day experience here of doing it, of being out there in the world, seeing and testing your limits, and going for greatness. That is it, period. That's it. It's not money, and it's really not anything other than knowing that you're out there and you're going to have lived a life in which you're testing yourself, and you're looking deep within yourself, and you know that at the end of the day you created something. You created something. And the magnitude of that is really not the point. What matters is if you're an entrepreneur, if it is really in your blood, if it is really who you want to be, you will be a creator, and that's magic. Another lesson I've learned is a pretty interesting one that really came to me first and foremost from a guy named Sam Zell, who I mentioned earlier. And Sam is on the Forbes, 100. And he's a very well-known entrepreneur. And he told me something that I'll never forget, which is the job of an entrepreneur, first and foremost, at the end of the day, is assessing risk and reward. That is it. Forget what you make, forget how you make it, forget everything else. Think about risk and reward. Are you being compensated well enough for the risk you're taking? Is the risk worth it? How big a risk? And on the other side, what's the reward? How far does the reward take you? Is the time that you're spending right now going to result in an upside worthy of that time? And if it doesn't, rethink it. Have patience. Experience to me equals patience. Because I clearly had less patience 10 years ago than I have now, and I promise you I'll get more patience in 10 years. But being able to assess risk and reward and make decisions based upon the true, realistic assessment of that equation is critical. And finally, I would say, if you define success as making lots of money, go be an investment banker. It's a much easier way to make a lot of money. What you're talking about out here, what you're talking about when it comes to creating a business, is defining success by your ability to create and your ability to figure out what needs to be figured out, to be resourceful. The most important asset that I propose to you that each of you have, the most defining asset that will differentiate you from your competition, the most important thing you can focus on is something that you cannot learn in school. It's called resourcefulness. It's, I believe, the most critical asset of an entrepreneur is to be resourceful, is to know that no matter what, you can figure it out. I never went to a class called Resourcefulness 101. If I teach entrepreneurship, I'd probably think about that in the title. It's what it's all about. I'm on the board of the Entrepreneurship Institute at the University of Michigan, and it's funny, we were at a board meeting last month, and the discussion was a review of the curriculum that we were teaching. i.e., can you teach entrepreneurship? And it got down to this conversation is, there's some element that you cannot teach. You can nurture it, you can emphasize it, you can focus on it, but you can't really teach it. And I think that's part of what drew me to this organization, again, to your seats 15 years ago, is that I wasn't sure I was able to go anywhere to learn what I thought was inside of me, but I wanted to find places to nurture it. And I wanted to find people and organizations to encourage it. And I wanted to find platforms that appreciated it and that respected it and that fueled it. And you've all found it. There are so many other places you can go, other organizations to join along your path that will give you the opportunity as you're going through that wonderful process to nurture, to learn, to be focused on, like I said, your inherent resourcefulness and ability to succeed no matter what the odds, no matter how big your doubts. I've been there. I've been at highs, I've been at lows, I've been in your seats, and I'm here right now telling you that I'm just starting. I'm just starting to learn. I'm just starting to get my own level of perspective. I'm just coming into my own patience and my ability to really dig down deep to the resourcefulness when it's time to do so. And I'm 15 years into it, but I got another 50 ahead of me. So each of you, hopefully, if there's anything that I can impart upon you years down the road, it's remember that you've got what it takes because you're here. And I'm telling each of you, without even knowing you, that it is in your blood. So you can go take a job somewhere, and you can try to forget that it's in your blood, but it's there. And it will be nagging at you saying, you can do more. Offering that to you. So one last quote to sort of put it all in perspective. A guy named Winston Churchill, one of the guys that I look up to most historically, has a quote that I think is great. He says, success is not final, and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And I believe it. So I offer it to you to continue on your paths. I applaud you for being here. I think it's a great, great place to assemble your toolbox and get things packed up as you go on your journey. And I really do thank you for the opportunity to revisit this wonderful forum 15 years later. So thank you very much.
Another wow. Carolyn was talking, our first speaker, Carolyn Gable was talking about looking for that sign. I don't know if these sparrows coming through here are finding something like that. Our next speaker